George, I want to begin with you because I know you've both been to Europe recently.
Yeah.
What's the takeaway in terms of the overall macro backdrop? Are things as bad as some people spout them out to be, or are they still pretty decent?
I think people are pretty constructive. I mean, there's a little soft patch in the first quarter, but generally speaking, the clients we spoke with, pretty optimistic about the growth outlook, pretty optimistic about kind of corporate earnings as well. It's been flowing through to the European corporate sector, and I think just generally constructive overall. In the world of bonds, we look at kind of the relative performance. Europe has been outperforming the U.S. pretty nicely, specifically in corporate bonds. And that's sort of another, I guess, kind of boost to the confidence, from those types of investors.
Yeah, and if you're worried about the growth relative to expectations this year, if you're worried about the politics in a place like Italy, we've seen spreads tighter, Mike Schumacher. In fact, I think that's been a really interesting pain trade for a lot of people. For a lot of people looking at the situation in Italy, surely BTP yields were going to go higher. Spreads have compressed. What is your view right now? And I'm going to ask you a very basic question, which probably deserves a lot of thought. What is more overpriced right now, a 10-year BTP or a 10-year Bund?
So I can't sell both. I've got to buy one.
Both. You plan the spread.
I think they're both. Neither one's a great value. I would stay in Bunds, frankly. And the thought there is that if the ECB does actually stay quite accommodative for a long time, which was one of the takeaways I got from Europe, investor after investor said it's pretty simple for the ECB to keep buying bonds, probably puts a bit more pressure on Bunds, is my guess. So it's more a view on the ECB and staying in QE for a while, rather than a fundamental call on Italy versus Germany. I agree the finances look okay in both cases.
What does the post-QE world look like? Because if you really take a step back, for many people, they're still conditioned by this earlier trading regime in the Eurozone debt crisis where Italy was almost exclusively a credit. Yeah. And now the ECB has got back in the game, and when you strip it all down, is this a sovereign once again? Can we start trading BTPs as if they were a sovereign?
Not quite. No, I think you still have a credit component. Or think about it this way, Jonathan. Think about what happens when, let's say, the DAX goes down 10% in a week or the S&P is down 20%. Where does that money go? Does it go to BTPs? No, it goes to Bunds. So I think you still have a, call it a crisis risk premium or whatever you might want to label it, but I think that's still there in Italy. It's there in Spain, almost certainly. There to a little bit of a degree in France, but not there in Germany.